Post-Gen Con prices. We're going without the camera once again this week, and we do have something a little additional to sneak in here, and that's prices for some Set 1 legendaries, because I received a comment offline that there were some interesting things going on, and while I had been monitoring them, we obviously haven't talked about it in a while, so we're going to sneak those in also. Speaking of suggestions, if there's anything else that you want to see on here, definitely let me know in the comments, because I have a few ideas, but it's always good to have feedback. So first things first, let's start off with Set 2. We're still seeing what I am attributing to the Baltimore and also Gen Con bump in DJ. DJ has been creeping up, and I'm not at all surprised. This guy definitely has a home in multiple different, well, at this time, hero yellow builds. Whether it's Han, maybe we'll see him show up in Lando, maybe we'll see it show up in a different version of Han, because there was both green for a little bit as well as the more recent mono yellow. However, a lot of red for all of the other legendaries. Things are stabilizing as before. I'm not expecting, we're not seeing huge drop-offs. I mean, I guess we kind of are for things such as Kylo's tie, which is interesting because it kind of gets used in basically every red villain deck, not for the ability, but because you are able to just have a presence in space for an easy cost. So it's interesting to me that that one's continuing to trend downward, but realistically, I think it's just a matter of supply and demand like everything else. This set is way more available than Set 1 ever was, and potentially ever will be. So we're not seeing these enormous spikes, even though we do still have at least a single card north of $40 in Poe. These are probably going to keep continuing to come down a little bit this week, a little bit next week, a little bit after that, as we move forward and people are completing their collections. Now, talking about rares for Set 2, again, not a whole lot going on there. Some minor changes. It's really what you'd expect. The rares, it's just too high of a quantity for things to ever really hold a whole lot of value. Even Maul is starting to drop down a bit, but he's probably going to stay stable. I'll be honest, Maul kind of surprised me with how valuable it was. I mean, I expected it to be good, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite as good as it has been. One thing I'm a little surprised at, though, and I'll point out, is that tech seems fairly stable, which is odd because I think this one's going to pick up over time. Again, rares are not going to, just because of how common they are, ironically enough, they're just not going to hold a ton of value, but I expect tech to show up in a lot of places going forward. Now, as mentioned, we're going to take a peek at the legendaries from Set 1. There's stuff going on with the rares as well, but speaking strictly about the legendaries, we are seeing a bunch of green as things are moving up. This is completely expected because, surprise, surprise, it is still difficult to get them. Now, we're seeing a downward trend, notably for Boba Fett Disintegrator. The rules change probably did a number on that guy. Vader's even coming down a little bit, but if you look at the actual values, we still have a number, especially compared to Set 2, there's still a number of cards that are highly desirable, like Vader's hovering just south of $50, or excuse me, just south of $60. Cunning, however, which is the other line, is just south of $50, which I don't expect that one to stay there, depending on the Spark of Rebellion reprints, but I get it. There's a lot of new and interesting things to play in mono yellow. It was good before, and now there's other decks that are also featuring Cunning, and the card's a blowout. Then you have increases on the Luke front, even Vigilance. I mean, yes, we're getting some minor increases, but some of these are jumping back up to what we saw several months ago. Notably going down for Avenger, which is kind of a trend that seems to coincide with what I'm witnessing in playtesting, where blue control decks just aren't quite able to stand up the way they were. Not to say that they're completely dead or anything, but they're definitely not as thrilling as they once were. So those are just some quick peeks at everything, as I mentioned earlier. Let me know what other things you'd like to see on here, what other information you think would be valuable. I have a couple ideas, but shout out to the people who've been sending me suggestions. Let me know in the comments for anything else. But that's going to do it for this time. So as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time for more Random Thoughts.